We start in the year 1983, in a hospital in Alamos, New Mexico, where a man is admitted with burns covering almost his entire body. He is a suspect in an inconclusive homicide case. The detective can't wait to talk to him and approaches while the man is still on the bed in agony. The man is so badly injured that he can't speak, but the detective has an idea. He leaves a small notepad and a pen on the bedside table and tells the man that they will find out who he is sooner or later, so he might as well confess now. The man's heart rate begins to accelerate when the detective asks him about macabre ritualistic cults. But their conversation is interrupted by a nurse who informs the detective that he has an urgent call. Just as the burned man begins to lift his hand to grab the pen, the detective leaves the room to take the call from the receptionist, who tells him that the man's young daughter was there, but left no information. Suddenly, the nurse can be heard screaming from the man's room. When the detective goes to check, he discovers that the burned man had jumped out the window after leaving a message on the notepad that said, "Abby, I'm sorry." 2 weeks earlier, we meet Owen, a lonely 12-year-old boy who is playing in the small yard in front of his apartment and eating candy. When his divorced mother calls for him to have dinner, he buries the candy wrappers in the snow before joining her. Dinner time becomes tense and strange when Owen's father calls and starts arguing with his mother, leaving her crying on the couch after they finish eating. Owen grabs a kitchen knife before going back to his room and rehearses confrontations with her while wearing a scary mask. The knife is put aside when he hears some noises outside, so Owen uses his telescope to spy on his neighbors. Jack is exercising, while Larry and Virginia start arguing only to reconcile a moment later. Owen cannot take his eyes off them until Virginia notices him, so he hides. But when he hears a car parking, he decides to spy out the window again. The couple is gone, and there is a middle-aged man, Thomas, and a young girl, Abby, moving into the apartment next to Owen's. For some reason, Abby is walking barefoot. The next morning, as he leaves for school, Owen sees Abby's footprints in the snow. At school, Owen is constantly bullied by Kenny and his friends. First, Kenny spits a ball at him during class, then they corner him in the locker room after swimming lessons. The bullies mock him for not swimming while hitting him with a towel, then push him to the floor and insult him. They don't let him go until Owen pees his pants. After school, Owen stops by the store to pick up some candy and sees a collection of knives, then decides to buy one. Later that night, he uses the knife to strike a tree in the yard while practicing being threatening. He is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Abby, who continues barefoot in the snow. After some small talk, Abby tells him she can't be his friend, and walks away. Then Owen goes back to striking the tree. A short while later, he sees Thomas leave the building dressed all in black and carrying a bag. Thomas goes to the store parking lot and breaks into a car while waiting for the owner to return. The guy comes back with his groceries and drives away, but it's not until he stops in front of the train tracks that Thomas acts. After putting on a mask, he kills the driver and drags him into the woods to hang him from a tree. Then he cuts the man's throat and lets the blood drain into a jar that he accidentally spills when he stumbles to grab it. He doesn't have time to clean up because a truck approaches, so he grabs the jar with the remaining blood and heads back to the apartment building. Owen is arriving home at the same time as Thomas and can hear him through the walls arguing with someone in a deep voice who wonders if they should go out and do it themselves. Thomas replies that he might be getting lazy because he is tired of doing it and might want to be caught. The next day, the detective and some police officers show up at the school to ask some questions because the dead guy from the night before was a recent graduate. At night, Owen spends more time in the yard, playing with a Rubik's Cube. Abby approaches him again and after failing to get him to come out, asks about the cube. Owen teaches her how to play while asking about her bare feet. Abby explains that she never feels cold. After lending her the cube for a night, Owen heads back to his apartment while she continues playing outside. Suddenly, the cube falls from her hands as her body begins to ache. Abby goes to a nearby tunnel and pretends to be an injured child asking for help. Jack is the one who finds her and tries to help her, but when he picks her up, Abby attacks him. She shakes him and hits him a few times before throwing him to the ground and drinking his blood, breaking his neck afterward to kill him before leaving. Moments later, Owen is spying on his neighbors again and notices that Jack is not in his place while he hears Thomas cursing and insulting Abby for something she did that he now has to clean up. He also sees Thomas hurriedly leaving the apartment. Thomas finds Jack's body and throws him into the river, using a pole to push him far under the water. The next morning, Owen finds the solved cube in the yard, covered in snow. He finds Abby again at night. After they exchange names, Abby says she is maybe 12 years old and doesn't know the date of her birthday. So Owen tries to gift her the cube, which she declines, but she accepts to teach him how to solve it, and they spend the rest of the night together playing. The next day, the teacher shows a movie to the class, so Owen uses this time to learn Morse code, and Kenny sees him. The three bullies corner Owen later in the bathroom, and Kenny gets angry when Owen refuses to show what he was writing. He hits him with a stick and calls him a girl, leaving a scar on his cheek and reminding him not to tell anyone. When he gets home, Owen lies to his mother, saying he fell on the playground. After dinner, he meets up with Abby and shows her that he is reading Romeo and Juliet. He also gives her a sheet with the Morse code key so they can communicate through the wall. Abby becomes worried when she realizes Owen might be able to hear her, and when he asks about her parents, she says her mother is dead, but doesn't answer Owen's question about why her father was mad at her the other day. After Owen tells her that his parents are getting divorced, Abby asks about his injury, and Owen tells the truth. She doesn't like what she hears and tells him he should fight back against the bullies, promising that if the knife isn't enough, she will protect him. Owen is skeptical, but Abby puts her hand over his and says she is much stronger than she looks. When they go back to their rooms, they start to use Morse code to communicate through the wall. The next day, Owen goes to see his gym teacher and signs up for a strength training program after school. Then he takes some money from his mother's purse and uses it to take Abby to the arcade, where he teaches her to play Pac-Man. Then he takes her to the store to buy some candy, which she refuses. Seeing him disappointed for not being able to share her favorites, Abby finally accepts one, only to run outside and vomit soon after. She apologizes to Owen, but he doesn't care. He just hugs her. Still worried, Abby asks if he likes her, to which he replies that he does. Then, she asks if he would like her if she weren't a girl, and he says he thinks so. They walk back to their building as Abby mentions that she has moved many times, and Owen says he wants to get out of his horrible town. When they start holding hands, they are interrupted by Owen's mother calling him for dinner. The two return to their apartments after wishing each other good night. In her home, Abby finds Thomas getting ready to leave again because he has no choice. She tries to comfort him with a gentle touch on his face, which Thomas appreciates, but asks her not to see Owen again. Thomas leaves and breaks into another car, hiding in the back seat while waiting for the right moment to attack. The driver arrives with a friend, who tosses his bag into the back seat, but still doesn't notice Thomas. Eventually, they stop at a gas station and the driver gets out to buy some things. After turning on the radio, the friend turns to get his bag and finally sees Thomas, who decides to act and attacks the man. The victim defends himself, but Thomas is able to kill him after a struggle, and the noises aren't heard due to the music. However, the car owner finally realizes there's a problem when Thomas sits in the driver's seat and starts the car to escape. Seeing the road ahead becomes difficult when the angry owner throws a smoothie at the front window, obstructing driving. The car ends up landing in a ditch and rolling over, trapping its two passengers under its weight. With the car owner approaching and the police about to arrive, Thomas grabs a bottle of acid he kept in his bag and pours it over his face to make his features unrecognizable. Back at the apartments, Owen and Abby are touching hands through the wall when Abby hears news of a murder suspect hospitalized for burns. She goes to the hospital and asks to see her father, but the receptionist says access is restricted. When Abby leaves, the receptionist notices she isn't wearing shoes and feels sorry for her. But when she steps out to stop her, she's already gone. The receptionist decides to call the detective to inform him about Abby, bringing us back to the beginning of the story. Abby has climbed the building and is now watching Thomas from the window. After she knocks on the glass, Thomas comes to her and shows he can't speak when she asks to be let in. They press their foreheads against each other before Thomas offers his neck to Abby to feed, which she accepts. As he loses consciousness, his body slowly slides and falls on the snow-covered ground. Moments later, Abby appears at Owen's window. After waking him up and asking him not to turn around to see her, Abby asks for permission to enter, which he grants her. Abby takes off her clothes and lies down on the bed with Owen, who notices she is freezing and asks how she got in, not believing her when she says she jumped to the floor. Owen decides to ask if she wants to be his girlfriend. At first, Abby rejects him, saying she isn't a girl, she is nothing. But she changes her mind when Owen explains that nothing will change and takes her hand to place it on his cheek while accepting. When morning comes, Owen finds a note from Abby saying that she should leave and live or stay and die. Owen's gym teacher takes the class to the frozen lake to play hockey and skate. Once again, Owen is cornered by the bullies, so he grabs a metal rod to defend himself. When Kenny tries to take it from him, Owen strikes him on the head, damaging his ear. The teacher wants to check what's happening, but is distracted by the sudden screams of several kids. They found Jack's body in the lake. After Owen and his mother have a meeting with the principal to discuss his actions, they head back home, where they are visited by the detective who wishes to ask some questions. Owen is sent to his room and, looking out the window, sees police investigating Jack's apartment. Later, he sends a message to Abby in Morse code, but she doesn't respond because the detective is now ringing her doorbell. When she sees who it is through the peephole, she decides not to answer, and the officer eventually leaves. The next day, after using the school equipment, Owen sees Kenny being bullied by his friend and brother because of his ear injury. His brother also takes his car keys and calls him a girl. At night, he meets up with Abby and tells her how he defended himself. Abby is proud of him and rewards him with a kiss on the cheek. Then he takes Abby to an old abandoned apartment that a previous teenage neighbor had introduced him to, which no adult knows about. Abby starts playing a song and asks Owen what he wants to do. He replies by hurting his hand to make a sacred pact. The smell of blood affects Abby, but no matter how hard she tries to fight it, she cannot. With her face changing to a more monstrous form, she falls to the floor and drinks the blood that spills. When Owen calls her name, she tells him to go away. But it is she who suddenly runs away and climbs a tree. At that moment, Virginia walks by with her dog, with Larry not far behind. Abby jumps on Virginia when she approaches and starts feeding on her, but Larry pushes her away, and after struggling against him, Abby flees. Moments later, Owen sees an ambulance taking Virginia away while he puts a bandage on his finger. He tries to talk to his mother, but she is deeply asleep, so he calls his father and asks if evil people exist. His father misunderstands the question and thinks his mother is putting ideas in his head, so he says they will talk later, leaving his son upset and crying alone. Owen decides to visit Abby, asking for permission to enter as she had done with him. While they start talking, Abby confirms Owen's suspicions. She is a vampire who needs blood to live, has been 12 years old for a long time, and Thomas was not her father. Among her collection of puzzle toys, Owen finds an old photograph of her and Thomas. Abby looks the same, but Thomas was a young boy like them. This scares Owen, so he tries to leave, but Abby stops him, allowing him to move again only when he wonders out loud what she will do to him. On the way to the exit, Abby reminds him that she said they couldn't be friends. In the hospital, the detective visits Larry and Virginia as part of the investigation. While interrogating Larry, Virginia wakes up, showing that her eyes have transformed into those of a vampire. She notices the intravenous line inserted in her arm and removes it to start drinking the transplanted blood from the wound when a nurse enters and opens the curtains, letting sunlight into the room. This ignites Virginia, which quickly spreads through the room and also onto the nurse. Owen sees the news of the hospital fire while having dinner alone in his apartment because his mother is out meeting with lawyers. There is a sudden knock at his door. It's Abby asking to come in. Owen doesn't understand why she can't just come in, so Abby shows him why she needs verbal permission. As soon as she enters, she begins bleeding from all over her body. Owen quickly realizes this and tells her she is allowed to enter aloud before hugging her. While Abby takes a bath, Owen cleans up the floor and throws away her dirty clothes. He also starts playing some music and tells Abby she can take a dress from his mother. Speaking of his mother, it's at that moment that Owen's mother returns, so the kids run to Owen's room and Abby climbs out the window to return to her own apartment. Moments later, after checking to see if his mother has fallen asleep, Owen goes to Abby's house. He spends the night with her and falls asleep on the floor, where he finds a note from Abby the next morning saying she is in the bathroom and he shouldn't come in. When there is a sudden knock at the door, Owen checks who it is through the peephole and sees it's the detective. He backs away, intending not to let him in, but steps on a loose board that creaks and gives away his presence. The detective forces the locked door and enters with his weapon ready, while Owen hides under a table. The officer begins to look around the house, finding the victim's wallets from the murder and Abby's note on the floor, which makes him move toward the bathroom next. There, he finds a pile of blankets in the bathtub, which he removes to find Abby sleeping underneath them. Needing light to see better, the detective starts to remove the boards that cover the windows, but Owen manages to stop him in time, as a burn starts to appear on Abby's leg. Now that she is awake, she jumps on the detective and feeds on him. The detective stretches out his hand toward Owen, silently asking for help, but Owen can only close the door and move away. When Abby comes out, she hugs Owen and tells him she needs to leave before kissing him on the lips as a goodbye. A few hours later, he looks out the window and cries when he sees Abby leaving in a taxi after having hidden the detective's body in the abandoned room where they spent time. The next day, Owen participates in swimming class. His teacher steps out of the pool when one of the bullies calls him to check a burning trash can, started by Kenny and his friends as part of a plan. With the teacher outside, the four boys lock the door behind him, enter the pool area, and demand that everyone leave except Owen, who tries to escape through the locker room but is captured by the bullies and brought back to the pool. Kenny's brother grabs him by the hair and says that if he can stay underwater for 3 minutes, he will only give him a small cut with the knife, but if he cannot, he will poke out one of his eyes. Owen is pushed underwater and held there when suddenly he starts to hear strange noises like breaking glass and the boys screaming. Blood starts to fill the pool, and even one of the bullies' heads falls into the water. It takes a moment, but Owen finally manages to get out of the pool and realizes that Abby has returned and killed all the bullies to save him. The next day, Owen is on a train, eating his favorite candy with a trunk in front of him. After showing his ticket to the conductor, he knocks on the trunk to send a message in Morse code, and Abby responds from inside.